Hey guys, welcome to the second installment of the Trials Talk podcast. Just wanted to give a little disclaimer before you guys listen to it. The start of the podcast wasn't so concrete this time around. We had a little discussion as a sort of pre-podcast while we were waiting for Plop to show up. Unfortunately, it was quite late for Blubbi and Lorcan. I think something like 2 a.m. almost for Blubbi. So after about an hour of waiting, we just decided to start the podcast with the four of us so Blubbi wouldn't lose so much sleep. This was on the fly, and that's why no one introduced the podcast and why I started cropping each webcam at the start of the video. We hope to have a more set schedule in the future so things like this don't happen. Hopefully that clears that up. On a second note, please go subscribe to Blubbi on his YouTube channel and go follow his Twitch channel as well, linked down in the description. We really appreciate him for being our first guest on the podcast. On top of that, if you guys would also like to be featured on the Trials Talk podcast in the future, there's a guest sign-up form in the description as well that you can look at to gain further information on how to be a part of this. Remember guys, you don't need a webcam to be on the podcast with us, just a mic. We also urge all of you to comment anything you want us to talk about for topics, because four of us cannot think of everything ourselves. It doesn't have to be trials related either. Okay, now that that is out of the way, please enjoy the talk.
I did want to maybe go into my top 10 favorite tracks, like overall. I don't know if you guys, if that's okay, if maybe I could start with that, because like nobody else really has to talk. I'm just kind of, unless you guys want to chime in, absolutely, and just like kind of give your 2 cents on on favorite tracks. So
Yeah, I think
I'm
you
gonna
should just
do,
go for it.
yeah, I'm gonna do a little bit differently than when Plop was doing his top 10 riders currently. I'm gonna go from 10, all the way down to 1. Have a little more suspense built up for it.
I see you read the feedback, huh?
Yes, I read all the feedback, and thank you again, everybody that put feedback into YouTube and sent me messages and like talked to all of us combined. I do appreciate that a lot, because it's so trials is, I don't know, this is a topic, or like trials in general. It's hard to maybe keep up every single week. That's why we're doing it like every other week, so we can generate these different like discussion topics. But it'll be challenging, I think, for us alone to make all of these questions. You guys definitely helped out this week, get it done. So thank you for that. My top 10 list for tracks overall. So I talked about it a little bit earlier. This is based on the originality of CPs and a little mixture with just like the decoration overall. I think it's really important. I get bored of tracks a lot more nowadays than I did in the past. I felt like I would grind out a track that has the black abyss background and be like, oh yeah, I'm totally fine with that. But not really much the case anymore. For my number 10 spot, I put down Under Construction. That is the Doughnut's track, probably one of my all-time favorite tracks that the Doughnut made. Really original obstacles. It was honestly one of the easier fives in my opinion. That's I went through all the individuals first of all, and I cranked through it once time through, except for the last checkpoint was really hard for me to understand. Really tough couple of bounces to finish it, but that was a huge one. Really weird technical track that's like mixed with climbing and stuff. So yeah, I got to put that one up there. Number 9, I put Ex Machina. It's a Jamaican track. That's a level 4. It reminded me a lot about like it looks like you're inside of the Death Star almost.
Yeah.
It's like kind of the feel that it gives off. And I just love, Jamma's tracks. There's going to be more later on in this list. I will guarantee you that, because the way that he implements decoration into his tracks is above like the rest. It's up there with like Zach, and I think Eccentrics has some really insane decoration on his stuff too. He's a PlayStation player, or PlayStation, I think he's on PlayStation. But anyways, yeah, Ex Machina. That's number 9. Number 8, I put Halcyon, or Halcyon. I forgot how to really pronounce that. It's a Zack track, a front wheel, back wheel. Um, it's like the same as like Castle Lake in the way of the background being like it's really zoomed out and you can really capture like the entire like valley of what is put in there. It's extreme, like it's just a stupid amount. I can't believe the game doesn't lag playing that track um, for as much decoration and whatnot's put on it. So that's pretty amazing. Number 7, I put down as the Ferost. I don't know if you guys remember that. I don't think a lot of people ended up playing that. It's a slick Bane track that is like a really borderline level 4 to 5. It's like you're in a deep cavern, like a cave.
That's a somewhat newer track.
And it's a pretty, it came out earlier last year. And that ended up being one of like a really tough track for me at that time, beginning of the year. That's why I thought it was such a borderline track. Oh, and by the way, you guys, if you guys are reading the chat and stuff and you see any like really funny comments, please by all means cut in. Or if somebody has like a really good suggestion afterwards, we can go over some more honorable mentions. Number 6, another really recent track, Eventide. This was an eccentrics track. This reminded me a lot of the Oregon coast. This was like, I don't know, level 2 or level 3. I can't really remember what it was. It was just a climb track. Eventide, like I want to go back and try to zero fault that track of how beautiful it looks, and it really does remind me of some areas along the coast here. It's spectacular. Hold on, I gotta move this camera in the background. Notice RJ's face is popping out a little bit.
That's because I'm moving around, probably.
You're good.
Make sure the cams are under the border as well. The sources. Don't know if you did that.
Yeah, I think I did that with everybody except Blub.
It's good now.
Can you like stretch my camera somehow?
Yeah,
I could do that actually as well.
Hold on. I gotta move yours just a tiny bit under here. Move Plop's thing.
I think you don't even need to stretch it like in Discord. It's just the full picture. Just needs to be moved a little bit.
Boom, like that. Solid.
What does mine look like, Blub? You like it? I can move you over.
I think that's good. On to the next one. What was I on? 5?
Yeah.
So for my number 5 spot, I picked Sorrow Street. It's a slick track that's black and white. Generally, I wouldn't have picked a track quite like this. There are some subtle problems with it. Like I can't really tell when it's like a front wheel, back wheel. Like it's really hard to tell the white versus black obstacles and whatnot. However, it reminded me of like, I don't know, Sin City type of look to it. And I really enjoyed it. And the driving line is spectacular. I think the driving line really, I think for a lot of Slick's tracks, you don't really go into it expecting like insane decoration, but his driving line really makes up for it. And is I think a pretty challenging level 4 that's definitely helped me progress with front wheel, back wheel stuff. Number 4, I picked what was it?
Wait, can I clarify something quick?
Yeah, what's
Did
up?
we start? Or
No.
okay.
I mean, we're
because I know
started.
that you were waiting for this, so I wasn't sure, and I was like out of the room when you started this, so I just wasn't sure. So I mean,
yeah, we're just kind of
because
melding it into one now.
Okay,
like,
sounds good. This is the
kinda happened
pod.
with
This
it?
is like the
This is
podcast.
the pre-podcast
Yeah,
for the
I just thought
actual
I'd
podcast.
I'd go over some like favorite tracks and whatnot. And I think this could be something that we do every week. Everybody could kind of go over their stuff and pick each other's brains about what their favorite tracks are and why. But yeah, number 4, I picked Karen or Chiron or something like that, I think is the name.
Yeah, Karen.
Yeah. and that's a Zach track. I ended up just PBing that like a week ago. It's got, man, what it's like kind of a medieval like fantasy type of look to it, where there's like green embers that are constantly falling throughout the track, and it looks just gorgeous. Every single CP,
Considering the name is from the ancient mythology, is probably antique.
yeah,
Like supposed to be like Charon was the like guy that carried the dead people over the Styx, like the river,
yeah,
so they could be judged.
yeah. It's just gorgeous setup. Like with there's a couple of checkpoints. Actually, there's one in particular that was like a bit odd. I think it was I want to say the second to last, or maybe it's the last one, because there's like a really awkward slide for me at least. I thought it's kind of strange, but seeing like a zero fault run on it, it looks spectacular. Zach does a phenomenal job on any of those technical tracks where you can I don't know, it's so much different. Like the originality of technical tracks really makes it shine. Number 3 I put down as Pelagic. That is the new Harmies track. I think we can all say that that one is up there because of like how long and just I think how much time was invested into like even the decoration throughout a 50 CP track. It's extremely hard, I think, to keep up that type of content. I saw Real Seven's video. Shout outs to Real Seven for the zero fault, and I think Zach also got a zero fault on it recently. Um, really cool track. Um, Fook, oh yeah, Fook's bringing up Within. Within's another track. That's probably an honorable mention because I can't really. I picked tracks that I could beat myself. That's what I'm basing it more off of. But I think just watching people play that track is pretty crazy too. Like basing that track off of the game Inside, he did a really good job of really highlighting like the key aspects to that game.
I think in general, you can just say Zach tracks are outstanding. Like in Track Central, it's just a fact.
Yeah,
Like I haven't seen a Zach track that didn't look beautiful yet.
I think I put Zach and Jamma as my top 2 picks for builders. Whenever we did, I don't know, what was it, the Google Doc or the questionnaire? I think I put that down as like the number 1 picks. My number 2 pick for track, I picked Hallow Vale. Hallow Vale was one of the hardest tracks I had passed pretty, I guess, not really recently, kind of the end of the summer. Another Zach track, but in combination with Jacob, aka Plop. Really crazy driving line. Really helped me with climbing and getting the throttle control down. It was an influential track for me overall as a player to be able to beat that track. And there's so many people that were commenting like, "Oh my gosh, you've been playing so many level 5s. Why haven't you beaten Hallovale yet?" And it's up number 2 for a reason. Um, it's not the number 1 though, because I have seen like a lot of the obstacles before. It's nothing, I guess, too out of the ordinary, but the decoration, the sort of eerie sense that it brings as well, it is really good. But my number 1 overall pick, do you guys want to take a guess really quick to what my number
Front
1
wheel
pick is
god?
going to be?
Front God.
No, fuck that track.
Slide God.
Slide god, no,
Ascension.
I suck at slides.
Ascension.
No, I think that's another
Castle
good
Lake.
honorable mention. No, Castle Lake's another really good honorable mention by Zach. I think that we can
Sack of
throw Zach
potatoes.
all the way into the honorable mention. What else do you say, Lorcan?
Sack of potatoes.
You think I'm gonna go with the trolley? No, those are safe.
Makalu.
Nah, Makalu, I liked it, but dude, that grind really made me like kind of question life itself, honestly.
Yeah, I'd never grind a track that much.
It's a stupid amount of grinding for that.
The main drain.
No,
How hard is it?
it's a level 4.
Child's Play.
Mm.
Ah,
How about you, RJ? You got any more guesses?
Is it?
Freezing Point.
Mm.
I don't know. I don't know.
Number one pick is Dreary Night.
Oh my.
Dreary Night. I
yeah.
absolutely love that track. The first time I saw a video of that track was watching Fenix run.
Yeah.
And or no, that was Frags, sorry.
Frag zeroed
It
it,
was
yeah.
Frags run. Sorry, the zero fault run for Frags. First time, that one blew me away. And then when
Yeah.
I tried to go into the individual CPs, I was like, I don't understand a single one of these. I don't know
Yeah.
what is happening. And I had to use just a different type of finesse with every single obstacle.
Yep.
The decoration, I mean, it's not like outstanding. It's not anything like Zach or Jamma or Eccentrics
It's
or
pretty goddamn good.
else, but it's pretty good.
Yeah.
I just think the originality of these CPs, it's a cut above anything I've really seen. And Borzerk has not made, I think, a whole lot of tracks, but I am really looking forward to playing some, like, I think there's some level 6 that, like, what was the
Isn't that
main?
Nescab?
Was it Nescab or was it?
I
Oh
think
no, it was
Borzerk is
Nescab.
Nescab's ult, isn't it?
Was it? Was it Nescab?
Really? I don't know.
I thought it was no, I'm pretty sure it's Borzerk. Was a
Yeah, I
creator
think
of,
that's Nescab's
Speedrunning.
ult account.
Oh, is that his same name?
I can't. I'm not sure, but I think it is.
I think I'm pretty sure. We talked about that before. But anyways, Nescab Borzerk. Yeah, that's the number one pick.
Yeah.
Hands down for me. What do you guys think about that list? Is there anything to add? Throw out some honorable mentions.
I think there are just too many good tracks on Track
Yeah.
Central to make a top 10 list. Like,
Yeah. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just your opinion, isn't it?
Yeah, this was really hard. I had to cut out like a bunch of tracks. I was making notes earlier today, just trying to figure out like, dude, what am I gonna add into this? Some honorable mentions. I put the first one I put down was a trolley. It was preposterous. See if that's better. No, never mind. Yeah, honorable mention structural decay and like shafted and perimeter check. I think those were again like really influential for like progressing into the level 5 ninjas. Like those were some really odd technical fours that
Yeah.
I really had to sit down with, and like it's like a puzzle basically trying to figure it out, and I think that helps.
Do you guys
I think
remember?
a safe bet for one of the best tracks ever is Ascension. Really,
Yeah,
It's like,
Ascension. Yes.
you could play that track a million times and it'd still be as good as the first time. I think it's just,
yeah.
yeah.
Do you guys
Also, it's kind of
remember?
like a cool. Oh, go ahead.
Do you guys remember the track Rebosterous? Any of you?
No.
Oh, it was a slick track. It when Josh said Proposticorn, it reminded me of it because it was just, I think it was just prep by itself, but with the rabbit, and it's like impossible, like almost impossible. It's so hard.
Was it called Robosterous?
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to
I
try
went
that
back
out
and
now.
played it and like actually almost passed. I got to the last CP and timed out.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
Huh.
Like, I just remember, like, for Ascension, right? Like, that was one track that I saw when I was kind of new to ninjas, and at first I thought this is just like impossible on keyboard because I didn't know that throttle control like that was possible back then. And then you would see a run, like I think it was Plop that zero faulted it really early on, or one faulted it, I'm not sure anymore. But he uploaded that run to YouTube, and I was like this track's actually like a skill game, right? So like passing this in zero faults, like passing the skill game was really insane. And
Yeah.
then like years later, you play it yourself, and you're able to zero fault it quite easily
Yeah.
as well. You just see your improvement. Like, at least for me, that was one of these tracks where I could really see like how I like improved as a player myself.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like the influence of the track also adds to its you know, greatness. Like Yeah, a track like Mr. Faps and Human, for example, people might not think that's a great track, but I mean that's one of the most viewed tracks on YouTube. It's
Level
yeah,
5.
you know, I think Shafted as well fits into that. I think Shafted was just well, even Prospector. I remember the battle to zero that between Pex Malik and Plop.
Is that the level 3?
Yeah, um, yeah. There's so many kind of like igneous, simple track, but when that came out, that was one of a kind. 2025. But these, these are all tracks that were kind of big in their day, kind of thing.
Hard line.
Yeah.
Preposterous as well.
There's another honorable mention. So this was really hard for me to determine, like I guess like number, 8, 9, and 10. Um, but Inquisitor, a track that Jacob made, that's another pretty recent track. It's mixed. It's mixed with like really slight after or like really quick afterburners on every single checkpoint, and he did it in a way that you could actually get it like I think really consistently. And the first time that I had passed that track, I had like almost 300 faults, and then I had like a giant PB on it. But that was another really interesting like set of obstacles that I hadn't really seen done like that before. Like
Yeah,
1 second bursts of afterburner was pretty sick to
yeah.
see.
I'm happy to move on if you guys are from the whole
Yes,
track talk.
Yeah,
I think we
absolutely.
should.
I think the next topic that we could probably go over, um, let's go over. So, so speedrunning, I think, was a pretty big topic that a lot of, or many people were asking, in the last video. It's like, oh yeah, but what about the speedrunning community? I know it's
Yeah,
pretty big for a lot of you guys, but um, with me, Jacob, RJ, Lorcan, it really, I don't know if you guys have had a whole lot of time speedrunning, maybe early on, like when
Lorcan.
you started the game.
Lorcan
yeah. I
used
mean, I
to.
wouldn't say I could speak for the speedrunning community, but I've had a decent amount of time into speedrunning. But A, I'm nowhere close to the best, and B, I I don't understand what it takes to be the best. So my opinions wouldn't be as valuable as yeah,
So
someone
that's
like
why we have
Thomas.
Blub here. Blub, I think, is the one of the greatest people to have on here to talk about speedrunning. And with him doing it on keyboard, I think is even more of a topic to discuss too. Just of how proficient he has become with a keyboard. Maybe we could talk a little bit like what are some of the differences maybe between like do you feel like the keyboard might be more consistent in the long run, like with
I mean, for this like topic in
Mhm.
general, I would just leave the keyboard out because I don't think it
Yeah,
makes a
Okay.
difference for speedrunning. Like, I don't think it's really relevant.
Okay.
Um, However, like just adding to what Lorcan said earlier, like he can't really speak for the speedrun community. Like, I never felt like there was like a speedrun community in Trials.
yeah,
Like, it was all just players. Like, it was more like before I got into ninjas, it always felt like ninjas are kind of like their separate community where like,
yeah,
players that don't play ninjas are excluded until they obviously like get in. Like, I don't know, speedrunning always felt like, really like open, like there's no like border and like everyone is just doing it because like technically
yeah,
Trials is all about speedrunning, like the base game is speedrunning. And then, ninjas are kind of that elitist like group of people where you need the like to earn the right to like get in or something.
yeah,
Like that was just my impression when I started with
yeah. I mean,
Trials in general.
I agree with that because
RJ,
when I talk to people who don't play trials and I say I'm one of the best, right? They think they straight away think, oh, so are you like number one on career tracks? I'm like, no, it's not about the career tracks. There's a separate thing called ninjas. And yeah,
I think one of the I don't know if we want to get into like this whole elitist thing of what's better, speed running or ninjas. Can we just agree to like try to combine them into one thing. I think speedrunning ninjas is a really, I think, a captivating thing, much more captivating to me at least than watching campaign tracks or career tracks, whatever you want to call them, run over and over again.
Yeah.
I know watching Classy and everything, like that is a spectacle, but I don't know.
I mean, they're two
I don't know.
different styles of playing the game,
Yeah.
and I think you can very much separate them. Like you can play ninjas without speedrunning, you can speedrun without doing ninjas, and then obviously there are players that combine both, like speedrun ninjas to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But the nature of it is people could speedrun and like get really, really like high level in speedrunning without touching ninjas, and they would like struggle on level 1 and 2 tracks. And then there are other people
Yeah.
that would just play ninjas and get to like level 4 and 5 level without having speedrun. So they would
Level
like
8.
only get to like maybe top 500 or top 1000 level in speedrunning. And
Yeah.
it's really a separate kind of skill set that people like don't necessarily need for, like they don't need ninja skills for speedrunning, and you don't need speedrunning skills for ninjas. However, some of them do help in the
Yeah.
other
Okay,
category.
well, with that being said, I've got a question for you then. What skills would you say, if you can answer this, are unique to speedrunning? What would you say a great speedrunner has that a great ninja doesn't, or a good ninja doesn't?
I'll weigh on
A
this.
leaning, I mean, depends what you consider a great ninja. Like RJ, for example, is like a level 7 rider, right? Like a lot of these skills he will naturally have adapted, but like a level 5 player might not have them at all yet.
Yeah. Yeah, let's go with
So
the level 5 player then.
okay, I would definitely say squishy, soft leaning, how to approach slides, angling your bike correctly when on high speed,
Yeah.
like knowing how the bike like reacts to collisions with objects, landings on high speed, how to land on uphills, keeping your momentum. In
Yeah.
general, how to like, just keep the flow going, like playing through a level without like losing your speed, keeping the maximum amount, cutting airtime, like all that is
Yeah.
just stuff that you only need for speedrunning, and you don't need it for ninjas at all until you get, for example, like squishies. Obviously, once you get to level 6, 7, you need them, but before that, just
Yeah.
oh, sorry, RJ level 8, yeah, my bad. But
No, he's over 9,000. You guys, don't question it.
yeah,
All
I
right,
don't
so
know.
you
In my
said you
mind,
wanted to
yeah.
weigh in, RJ. What was you
Well,
going to say?
I was just gonna say, because I'm not a speedrunner, I would be able to verify if what he was saying would be correct about like what skills I wouldn't have that speedrunners do, and he's pretty much correct. So that's what I wanted to
I
say.
mean, from my experience of speedrunning, which, like I said, isn't much, I'm probably like maybe top 70 in the world. But like I said, the gap between that and like even top 20 is extremely high. And then to go further to top 10 and top 5 and obviously first. But what I noticed is it to sum it up, I guess it's almost like bike control is the general term for it. I don't know, there's something speedrunners at a high level have that allows them to just kind of flow on the bike. For example, if you watch a lot of Pajamas Rayon videos, he seems to be able to be so comfortable like flipping and landing and then like sliding down on his back wheel and then perfectly recovering from that into a jump on like these outrageous things where they're coming in at immense speeds and just controlling the bike without any sort of issue.
Loss.
I find is just yeah.
Yeah, I think the most
I don't
important thing
understand it.
is like knowing how to keep your momentum going. I mean, in terms of speedrunning, like in any game, like no matter if you look at Trials or like Trackmania or like any other racing game, it's
Yeah.
usually always the same basic that it comes down to: cutting corners short, like low airtime, keeping your wheels on the ground, and not losing speed.
Yeah.
And that is just stuff that you don't ever practice when you're just playing ninjas. And
Yeah.
that's also just stuff that you learn after like hundreds of hours by just getting a
Yeah.
feel for it.
This kind of goes into my biggest philosophy with Trials, which is if you truly want to be good at the game, I would highly recommend doing both. I personally don't believe somebody who does just one can ever be as good as somebody that does both. Even if you're, let's take RJ for example. RJ is probably the best, if not, tied at ninjas, right? Let's not get into that. But he will never be as good as GT4 overall at all. Like that gap is just way too far because
Unless he gets into
GT4's
speedrunning.
yeah, unless you get into it, because GT4 speedrunning ability has gifted him so much more like knowledge about the bike. And so I do think if you're new to the game, you should do both because it teaches you so much. Like, yeah, it does a lot for you. I personally felt after speedrunning for like a good few months and like reaching, which I think I reached like top 50 at the time, I felt like it improved my overall game. And I felt like I was definitely better at ninjas when I came back.
Also, one thing that I would just quickly get into is like what kind of picking up on what you said earlier, right? Like there's a big difference between top 20 and top 10 or like top
Yeah.
1. And like people saying, all right, I reached like a top 100 run and that's like really good for me. I think that's the wrong approach, or like in terms of like justifying how hard speedrunning is, because
Yeah.
trials, at least right now, is not as competitive as it could be. It doesn't have a big player base, especially for speedrunning. Like at like Fusion's best like times, say 2 years after release, right, there were like still maybe 10 people that were actually competing.
Yeah.
So the difference between like a top 20 run and the world record on the track could be 3 seconds easily.
Yeah.
And
Which
3
is a lot of
seconds,
time.
3 seconds on a track is a lot of time. And to cut that
Mm.
time off, you need techniques that, are a lot harder to execute and that take a long time to learn. But if you're just like, right, I got a top 20 run and that's like a really good run, doesn't necessarily mean that you're like really good at speedrunning or you understand like the precise little things that you can do to shave off time.
I
At
think this
least
is
not
something
in.
else as well, sorry, because with ninjas, right, it's quite simple to see what separates a level 6 to a level 7, right? It's either throttle control or a flat squishy or, more control on your back wheel. Whereas to try and see what saves you those 3 seconds, it's not that easy. Like it's these micro movements almost. And I think that's what like amazes me about speedrunning. One little half lean can save all this time. Whereas, you look at a ninja track and you see, okay, I need to do this to do that. But it's not that simple with speedrunning.
Also, like, I mean, just like one example, maybe from my personal experience, like one of the first level 5s that I passed was Bounce God, which a lot of people back then considered like a pretty hard track, and it felt quite
Yeah.
easy for me. And I remember like when I started like working here, I was talking to like some of the track builders about like, obstacles that might not be optimally built right now.
Yeah.
And we were talking about stuff, and I was like, how like a bounce reacts different depending what surface you're bouncing off. Like if you're bouncing off a thin plate or like a big rock, the bounce will
Yeah.
be different. If you're bouncing off the middle or the like front section of the rock or the back section of the rock, it will behave
Yeah.
different. And they had no idea. Like they were like, why? And I couldn't
Yeah.
explain why, but I just knew that that's the way the physics in trials work, like from
Yeah.
experience. And when playing Bounce God, for example, that's a track where you definitely need to know or like have a feeling for how to angle the bike midair before approaching the bounce. Because if you put your nose down and then pull back, the bounce is going to be higher than if you just lean back for the bounce.
Yeah.
For
I've seen
example.
RJ do that recently, actually. I think he knows about that.
Do what,
Yeah,
sorry?
and like was a lot of stuff like that like was kind of just natural for me when I passed like Bounce God back then. And a lot of
Yeah.
the people that I saw playing it just didn't do that. And so they
Yeah.
really struggled on the checkpoints while there. Once you like understand what you need to do and understand the physics, um, they're quite obvious to you. And I think
Yeah.
this kind of like just feeling for how the bike works and how the physics work is something that you get when speedrunning, because like getting a good bounce is like required to speedrun on a lot of tracks, for example.
Yeah.
Blub, so I don't typically like the speedrun career tracks at all. What would you what would you recommend to somebody that is like just starting to get into speedrunning? What are like the methods? Like how do you progress as a speedrunner? How did you start?
I mean, you start by like aiming for small improvements. Like you start, you'll probably get a silver medal. You'll aim for a gold medal. You'll aim to zero faulted tracks. Then you look for some friends to compete with. And you just like always look for someone that's like just a bit better than you, and you try to
Mhm.
beat them. And
Yeah.
obviously, with trials, we have leaderboards. We have replays for everyone that played a track, and you can go there. You can check what they're doing. You can try and understand what they're doing. And I think the most important part of like improving at trials is just not doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results, but actually trying to understand what is he doing different and how can I do the same thing.
Yeah, because that's the actual term for insanity. Is just expecting the same results, or expecting different results, doing the same thing, the exact same thing.
Yeah.
It's so
What I
So,
see
important
a lot.
watching the replays
Oh,
for it.
like go on,
I
Lorcan.
agree.
Josh, why don't you like the career tracks? What deters you from speedrunning those? Because conventionally, that's what you start with.
Hmm.
Track Central speedruns, like you get into those, they're just kind of fun, but the heart of speedrunning is kind of in the career tracks.
Yeah. I think I've been spoiled by Track Central and by
Yeah,
looking at these all these amazing user created stuff that like now I'm able to zero fault ones twos maybe threes every once in a while if I really sit down with them, but like I do like speedrunning the extremes, and I think that's something that um I can go going forward with more. I just like hitting like insane slides, like it's just not my forte at all. Is like the big problem that I have with it.
Play triple slide for eternity.
Yeah, the quadruple slide, the
yeah,
the sextuple slide, and just work on slides all day long. Um,
yeah,
Like just one thing that I see like a lot of like players, like even good players, like say a top 100
Mhm.
player do is when there's actually like once in 100 days there's a speedrunning stream on Twitch, and they try to beat a run and they race against ghosts, and the ghosts like go ahead in a certain section. Obviously they're going to check the replay, and a lot of the time they're like, I'm doing the same thing but it's not working, and that's their conclusion. Like I just need to get lucky, but
yeah,
like that's not the case. Usually there's like a tiny movement or like something different in the setup, like just a difference, because obviously trials is physics based, so whatever you do will impact the like outcome,
And
and it's just
yeah,
your own impact.
I think
I think.
ninjas
Oh, sorry. Go
would
ahead.
see that difference in the little movements. Like if you went into both speedrunning and ninjas, that would help you, you know, determine the difference in a replay that could help you get a better score overall.
For sure.
I was gonna say that going back to why I say that I got spoiled basically with Track Central is that
Why does that, like, where's that coming from?
do you have the
I have it
notification
off. Like
turned?
it's not even on my stream, but I hear the soundbite through like someone else's.
If you have the Streamlabs app like by itself, you can turn off the notifications and like mute the sound for it, I think.
Do not have that. I have what? Oh, actually, Streamlabs stream labels. Maybe that'll.
Yeah, in the stream labels, if you go into it, like up at the top, there should be, I don't know, it's got like the bell and then like a pause button, I think, on it.
Oh, okay. And then
Yeah, that will like mute it.
okay, sick.
But
Thanks.
going back to like the whole speedrunning aspect, for me, I think it's gonna be different with Rising because there's not gonna be, 100, almost 180,000 tracks, when I start like getting into Track Central, that I'm not really gonna have a whole lot to really go off of with ninjas. Um, and I do think that speedrunning will help me immensely progress because it's the slides, the squishes, just maintaining momentum and getting that flow that
yeah,
I don't seem to have currently. I like to take my time with a lot of the obstacles and stuff like
yeah.
right now, just trying to pinpoint. Um,
It's good
I'm
that you
trying to
know that,
pinpoint.
though.
Yeah, it's like I'm trying to pinpoint down like back wheel only types of tracks, and like level 5 back wheel only climbs is something I'm progressing in
Yeah,
a lot more over the past couple months. Um, but yeah, I
I
think it's
think
gonna be a lot different.
a game like Trials like definitely does take rhythm, right? You need a rhythm to perform well. Even when ninjas. Um, and so yeah, like any game that requires mechanical skill takes some sort of rhythm. I think if you just look at Trials, like, I mean, I don't know how to explain it, but there's just a flow. There's just a kind of a kind of way about it. And I think you can only truly acquire that rhythm if you either put in a ton of time or you understand the bike by playing both speedrunning and ninjas.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in general, I think you can just sum it up. Like, Trials is a very complex can do in the game. And if you only see half of it, let's just call speedrunning and ninjas half, obviously you're not going to get a full understanding of the physics and how everything works.
Yeah, easy equation, I agree.
Yeah. I think you guys ready to move on to the next subject, because I think I had a pretty good I guess I had a pretty good leeway into the next topic. Blub was talking about how Trials isn't really much of a competitive scene, and I think it absolutely could be. It's really dependent on how this game first launches and if we can get tournaments going in the community. And with Red Links, I don't know if they conduct any tournaments themselves or what their plan is with tournaments and whatnot. But esports for Trials is something that has been in discussion for a little bit. What do you guys think? Like, what do we need to do? Is it more based on the community to get these tournaments going, or should we all get in contact on the forums with Red Links and like get specific streamers to like get partnered with them and to like sponsor tournaments of any kind, and like how tournaments should be conducted? Because there's been a bunch of different ways how they've gone about.
I mean, I would like to go first on this topic because
You're a dev.
Go for it.
I think currently it would be pointless for Red Links to host tournaments because right now, as you said, or as we kind of all know, there's no like big competitive scene. Trials right now is a niche game, and like on the past tournaments that Red Links has hosted, especially considering like the DreamHack event in, I think it was 2016 in Paris.
Yeah.
Or 15, I'm not sure anymore. And the Evolution tournament, there were not many people interested. There were not many people watching the stream except for the Trials community. And people from outside Trials, also seen on like SGDQ runs, don't understand what Trials is about and what is actually difficult in Trials. Like, you see someone on a GDQ like playing a ninja and people don't react, but when he does a front flip, everyone like freaks out about it. And Trials, like many esport games, is a game that people need to actually play themselves to understand what's going on. Kind of like Dota, kind of like League of Legends, like games that are really complex. And for people that don't play them, it's not exciting to watch. So for Trials, if there is going to be a esports scene, that's only going to happen if Rising, when it comes out, is successful. And I mean, there's going to be online multiplayer at the beginning of Rising. If Rising gets a huge player base and a lot of people actually get into the game and their community tournaments hosted and the devs see, oh, there's interest in community tournaments, there's like an actual like player base that would like to compete, there are like people interested in watching, then there's going to be like actions by the developers that can boost something like an esports scene, like official tournaments. But as long as Trials is a niche game and doesn't have a huge player base to show, there's just
your
no
mic or
like.
your camera slipped up a little bit.
Yeah, just rotate it
FYI.
up. Your head is like cut off now.
Yeah.
Is it? Oh, right.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
But yeah, like as long as there's no like competitive scene and there's like no proof of there being a competitive scene, there's just no point for the developers in hosting a like big tournament or something like that to boost an esports scene. It would just be a waste of resources.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's much more of a community thing that we need to put on ourselves in that regard. And I don't know, do you guys think that like just speed running like easier ninjas, or like should we like include like harder ninja tracks in types of like our own tourneys? Like what do you guys think is like a really good outline?
To be fair, I
For
think what Redlings has been doing has been the best thing to like start up a competitive scene, having tournaments on supercross tracks, easy tracks,
the easier
Yeah.
one.
because they are like easier to like follow for people that don't necessarily know trials. It's
Mhm.
very easy to see, oh, this guy's in front, so this guy's winning. While on a ninja
Yeah.
track, you just don't understand what's going on unless you've played ninjas yourself. And like objectively speaking, not even 0.2% of the entire player base even played a ninja track in their life.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you want to cater to a big audience, it would be pointless to have like ninja tournaments.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, you can't really argue with that, as unfortunate as it is, you know. Although I do think if you do, if ninja tournaments were to, you know, pick up, I think to answer your question, Josh, would be tracks that highlight skill. So I don't think it's wise for myself and RJ to play each other on a level 6.
Yeah.
Just because it would take 10 minutes for one of us to pass it, for example. And
Mhm.
I don't think that highlights our skill truly. I think us going as quick as possible, getting 4 or 5 faults on a level 3 or 4 or 5
Mhm.
is much more entertaining than us spending 10 minutes plus on a 6 or even 7, because RJ's that good now. He can pass 7s whenever he wants.
I think that's been exemplified in the tourneys we've had so far. The couple matches that I've been in that have been higher level tracks, it's taken like, you know, like Bounce God against Scott, like that takes forever, and it's just not nearly as
Yeah.
close or as intense as like some of the other matches that have been played on like level 3s.
Yeah.
There's a
And it
new
also
tourney.
allows more players as well.
True.
So there's a new tourney that's being introduced by Colorado, Derek and Santa. I don't know if you guys read up on it. It's the Farewell Fusion tourney. I wanted to talk about that just a little bit and kind of the setup. And it was a
Yeah.
lot different than what I've seen in the past for tournaments. The qualification for it is you have to have passed or you have to have zeroed a level 3 track. Now again, we're catering to the 0.01% of people um that haven't you know gotten progressed that far in ninjas. There's really not a
Yeah.
whole lot of people, but the community right now, it's not that large. But I think this is an excellent opportunity to pin down some really competitive matches for level 5, level 6 players that that can run. I don't know. It's supposed to be the final was supposed to be like a couple of level 4 tracks and then a level 5. And you'll be streaming it on your own. You get a time limit of 30 minutes, and you get to restart the track as many times as you want, which is a really interesting concept. It's like you pick your best run out of that 30 minutes, and
Yeah.
you stick with it. And I think it's an odd, or it's not an odd way to do it necessarily. But what are you guys' thoughts on the layout of this kind of tourney?
I really like the layout of this style of tournament for
Yeah.
like trials players, because having just one run is obviously like you're not going to go for the risky strats, while if you have more or multiple runs, then you can maybe go for some, say, obviously like the tournaments were for level 4 tracks, but maybe for some time savers or like skipping a checkpoint in between, stuff like that. But for spectator sport, I think live multiplayer is just more exciting, like seeing people
Yeah.
on the same track, kind of.
Yeah, I understand that. There's another thing that Colorado was doing that I really liked. He was doing splitting the stream into 2 sections. I did it with Plop, and we were playing some really funky tracks just to test out um, this theory that we're going into tracks that we've never really played or haven't practiced that much before.
Yeah.
And I like seeing the that multi-stream layout on somebody else's channel, and being able to see associate a face with a rider. If somebody has a webcam, you can see all sorts of reactions by how they're progressing through a track as well, how they tackle obstacles differently. I think is really cool to see that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I think another thing is also it takes players have to be willing to play. And I'm not calling out anyone in specific, but there seems to be a bit of a lack of willingness to participate in tournament. At least in the ninja ones that have been hosted in the past, people like not caring or not being bothered too much to like participate, which yeah, I think that's a bit of a downer. You always want the community to be kind of active and wanting to participate in these things.
Mm-hmm.
Also, like if there's ever a tournament with a loser bracket, it seems that when somebody loses, they kind of just don't want to compete anymore. Like they go to the losers bracket, and then setting up those matches, they're way harder to set up. Like people just don't even care at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is there any possibility maybe to have like track building contests? Because I know that was something that Red Links like kind of threw out there pretty recently. We had a bad track competition. Is there any hope for people to sit down for a week or maybe a month and have like a deadline for like really phenomenal tracks that the top 10 list? Is there any possibilities for that to be like competitive at all? Do you think that's a good idea to like, I don't know, not necessarily like force people into like building, but I don't know, maybe try to see a wider audience because there's maybe an incentive on the line to like build some
I
cool
mean,
stuff.
I think for building competitions, it's the system kind of like there's a building competition and there's some great rewards to like reward people for participating, and the upside is obviously you get great tracks on Track Central. That's really good and that's fun, and people have been participating in those, but you can't be competitive. I don't think building can be like a competitive kind of sport or however
Speed
you would call
building.
it. Like, yeah, I think
2 hour build.
having building competitions is a really good thing, and builders like in general should be rewarded way more than they are in trials. Like in Fusion, there's like we can be happy that there are so many people that spend like hundreds of hours building tracks without getting like any reward for it, like except for maybe the thumbs up in the Track Central, because in the end, like all the people that play these tracks like get so much enjoyment out of them, and without them, trials would be kind of dead. So
yeah, for sure.
It's a little dopamine rush when you get the thumbs up on anything, a YouTube like, comment, all that.
No, honestly, shout out to all the builders out there, man. Building is definitely something I would recommend to everybody, and I hope in Trials Rising, I hope that everybody who that does like fully come into the community, because I imagine there's going to be an influx of people into like the Discord. Obviously we have the Ninja Central website. I do hope maybe we could get some like building
tutorials
going, some like nice kind
too.
of
would be really cool.
Things the community can do.
Tutorials, PogChamp. Those were so good back in the day.
Yeah.
Swamp balls. More people like that. More builders in general, because that also helps increase the skill everything with the game, because like Slick, like I wouldn't be level 8 without Slick.
I mean, without like the tracks, people wouldn't be where they are right now. Like, no way.
Yes.
Like, I feel like Slick has been pushing the ninja level constantly by like releasing, I mean, 2025 or 2025 that was Plop, but like Sabotage was like pushing it to level 7, and then a lot of the level 7 tracks like Grievous are just Slick, Deadroot, like a lot of them are just Slick pushing the game more. Wraith pushing it to level 8.
Yep. Speaking of building, do we want to jump into the tool, or do you not want to talk about that?
We can absolutely talk about that tool because that was a pretty controversial subject that we had going on my stream
Yeah.
recently. For anybody that doesn't know,
Yeah, let's lay it down.
yeah, so there's a trials editor like assist tool, I guess, as like the full like I don't know what description of it you'd say. We
Yeah.
call it Hooks tool, and it's only on PC, and this is something where we think that PC has an advantage possibly over console players
Yeah.
because they're able to go into the editor with these already made tracks like without building it themselves and able to um, edit at their own will
Yeah.
and break down checkpoints to put 3 extra ones depending on how many obstacles are just on that one checkpoint. And
Yeah.
fairness is another very subjective term that is constantly brought up with this topic.
Yeah, it all depends on the context, I think.
It's really hard to tell, like for me personally, it's an honor system when you're modifying tracks is what I would call it. Like if I think you can progress at whatever rate that you want to, um, as long as you are going back and you are playing the full version of the track and passing. I don't see anything wrong with it, but it's a technological advantage that you have. While you have a PC, you're not able to necessarily, you'd have to ask people that are on PC, hey, can you upload like plus CPs for this track?
Yeah.
And you're relying on other people basically to have the game as fair as possible. So I don't think there's really any way to get around it necessarily.
Yeah.
I'd like to mention, I'd say it's not really getting around it, but it's Vantier had a good forum post about making a universal code that builders would adopt in Rising going forward that would make a practice mode basically.
But that's still not the same. It's skipping checkpoints. It's not like if a checkpoint includes 3 obstacles on PC, you can
That's true.
practice like the one you struggle on.
Yeah.
While
I'd say it
with the
helps.
practice tool, yeah.
Another thing is that Jukes mentioned this in my chat. People make it sound like PC players are just going rampant with this tool when that's really not the case. Like no one's really abusing it. Like rarely people use it. Honestly, it's not a big problem at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, the issue isn't a real one because the player base is so small that it doesn't really make a massive effect because anybody who does well, for one, I don't think there is anybody that has gotten to the level they are because of this tool. And two, I don't think that it would give that much of an advantage. But the issue is it's still present, and hypothetically speaking, the advantage it does grant in the long term could be quite detrimental to the console players. And I personally think if this thing does exist, which it does, PC is essentially pay to win. If you have a PC, you have the advantage of playing any track you want in the editor and doing whatever you want to the track. And I don't think you can deny that that is a bit of an outrageous advantage. But I think realistically, it's not an advantage because, like you said, it's not really used for that. And I don't think anybody has gotten to where they are because of that. So, yeah.
I mean, what I'm going to say is, we had this kind of conversation before. It's just the difference between like talking about a cooperative or a competitive environment. In a cooperative environment, it's a great thing because it allows people to practice stuff without spending the same amount of time. It allows people to progress a lot faster in the game, become better in trials, and that's a really good thing. But when it comes to like competing on who passes a track first, then it's unfair. Like it's kind of like just another kind of little example was back in the day before there was like the entire Track Central cross-platform. There was like Preposterous on PC because the track got ported. It was one of the Uplay picks, and I played Preposterous and I passed it with like 98 faults or something my first attempt. And then Nano played the track and he passed it with like 80 faults. And he said, "Yo, I beat you on my first attempt. You suck." And I looked at Track Central and he had played the plus checkpoint version before. I was like, "Well, yeah, you got a better score, but playing the plus checkpoint version before kind of devalues your achievement because you didn't do
Yeah.
the same thing as me." And it's kind of the same thing with the practice tool. Playing the same track after having practiced the parts you struggle on just makes it less of an achievement talking in a competitive environment.
Yeah, in the
Yeah.
competitive environment, absolutely. I don't think it devalues like it might have taken you longer. Like you got to factor in if you're making a YouTube video of, oh yeah, I did the individuals and even the plus CPs, and it still took me like a couple of timeouts, and then people be like, oh yeah, this is he grinded this one out. But um yeah, I don't want to say it devalues. I don't want to put anybody down by like saying, oh yeah, you passed this track, but you took way longer than I did. Like I
Yeah.
don't know. It's a bit too cocky in my
Yeah, it's a
opinion.
slippery slope, but in a competitive environment, that's ultimately what you're going to get.
Hmm.
You know, yeah. And I don't think, I think as much as we want trials to be a competitive environment, it's really not. Like, we
No, it
can
feels
do
more
our
like a
best.
single player.
Yeah, we can do our best to say, oh, I beat you on this, I beat you on that, I did this in less timeouts, I did this in less overall time. But at the end of the day, you know, as sad as this is to say, it's not really amounting to anything. You know, you just passed the track on trials. You know,
It's just a game.
yeah,
But you know, it's another topic talking about like perseverance and like actual life, you know, skills that you implement into this game is you know,
mm,
perseverance and having that sort of determination um can lead into, I think, better habits for like, you know, your job, whatever you do. I think trials has helped me stay a lot more patient. We talked about that last time. Um, but I mean, we talked already about what the analogy of the American Ninja Warrior a little bit um, on my stream when like this
yeah,
discussion came up, and I talked a little bit about you or with you, Lorcan, with it. And it's just like building your own and modifying tracks like in your backyard, like literally people just building stuff in your backyard. And
yeah.
I forgot what you said uh, to summarize it. It's like,
It's what Thomas said at the start. It depends on whether we are seeing it as a competitive game or a cooperative game.
yeah,
And in that analogy of the Ninja Warrior, what if you don't have a backyard? Then the person that does have the backyard has the
yeah,
advantage. And if it's competitive, then it's unfair. But if it's not competitive, then it's like it doesn't really matter because we all just want to see each other progress, regardless of the means.
exactly. That's how I feel, and that's why I think I'm for the like the tool, even though I don't use it. I don't know. Maybe my opinion will change if I do even use the tool, but
Yeah.
still,
Personally, there will always be a part of me that has that Schadenfreude. You know, I want to see my peers not do as well as me because I'm competing with them. Like,
hmm
if me and RJ are playing the same track and he's about to pass it, I want him to time out because I want to pass it first. And that, you know, that's a part of me and it's a part of high level gameplay that will always be there. But my want for the game to progress and for RJ to progress trumps that. You know, as much as I would like to pass it first, if he does pass it first, you know, that's still I'm still happy for him. You know, I won't let that um that Schadenfreude like kind of trump my um community spirit, I guess.
I mean, that's another
that's
thing
how you
with like
motivate
building
yourself.
tracks like this, though, right? Like sometimes the builder wants people to fail on a part.
Yeah,
Like later on in the checkpoint, you put a jump that's like really awkward, but once you know how to like approach it, it's not awkward anymore. And then you're
yeah,
watching a player like play it, and you get like joy out of seeing him fail that jump the first time around, and you're like, yeah, that's why I made it like this. and giving players the option to practice kind of takes away a little bit of the intention the builder put into the track as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. RJ, do you have anything to say on that?
Anything to add on to it, RJ?
Well, I would say I'm like the least competitive person at a high level in this game. Like I'm happy for people when they achieve stuff they haven't, even if it's against against me somewhat. But that to me it's not against me, but to other people, like when people compare GT4 to me, it's like they think that matters, but I don't care necessarily. Like I can't speak for GT4. Maybe he does. Like I know at least somewhat he probably does. And I have that Schadenfreude you were talking about a little bit when on certain tracks when I'm playing them again, if people are also playing them, but I'm not really competitive.
I mean, I don't think that's one thing about the Trials community. Like everyone's really like constructive and like supportive towards each other. Like I have not ever seen someone like being not like pleased with someone else achieving something in Trials. Like everyone gets joy out of seeing someone passing a track after like grinding it for a long time. Like hates seeing them time out. But I think the Schadenfreude kind of like just comes in when you're actually like competing with someone and you're like playing the same track and you're like, please, I want to do it first, and like then you're happy to like see them fail. In any other scenario, I think like the Trials community is just very supportive and like appreciates others achieving their goals, which is again why I think Trials like in general is just a cooperative game and competitive in certain times and
It's
certain
friendly
when it's
competition with
warranted.
people that you're closer to on the leaderboards. Absolutely.
Yeah,
exactly. Like if you have a great score on a track, for example, and someone is like one fault away, you want him to fail on the last checkpoint one more time.
Yeah.
So it's good to stay competitive, man. It definitely helps me have motivation, you know, seeing all the friends really close in faults and times and whatnot. But is that the only thing that helps you guys stay motivated? Just trying to progress this and weave it into the next topic of like the mental state of playing Trials. I don't know if we covered it a little bit last time, but like how this game affects you. And this was something like Liquidity put in the comment section. I wanted to make sure that we got in some comments from everybody in the stream. And if people have other comments, please ask away, and we'll try to answer them as efficiently as possible. But like for me, I think streaming has also helped motivate me a lot with playing
same.
progress. Is it the same way for you guys?
For sure.
As well.
I'd say number one for me, I just want to see how far I can push myself. I think just, you know, playing harder and harder tracks, grinding longer, that just what I feel, how it improves me, you know, self-improvement.
Yeah. I think truly only I can motivate myself. I think, like, let's take this as an example. I think there were so many points in my Trials life where if I just timed out, I wouldn't be where I am. Like, if I just failed one obstacle, I would just completely not be here because that one timeout would have just, like, completely unmotivated me. For example, like, a big turning point for me was when I passed Apostasy. It was my first time ever passing checkpoint 3, and then I managed to pass the full thing. But if I had timed out there, I might not have picked up the game again because I was just casually getting back into it after like a 6-month break. But then that pass led me to pass Luscious, then a bunch of other 7s. And so I was thinking, if I just failed and didn't achieve that one thing, I would have just, you know, not played again.
Yeah, dude, the perseverance is big psychological aspect to it. If you failed on that, you know, it's good to take breaks. We talked about that a lot last time too, of taking breaks, when you should do it. If you're not enjoying the game, then please play something else. play other games that maybe require some form of dexterity, like
Monopoly.
Guitar Hero, Monopoly.
Monopoly
You
is a
could
great
you
game.
play whatever you want, man, just to put your mind at ease. It's a really good thing to do. Um, I don't know. I don't really feel that pressure. Like I'm okay with so much failure. Um, I think I finally reached the 1 million faults question mark. So
Nice.
that's a big milestone for me.
You
We're
killed
where
all
I'm
those
at.
clones, damn you.
So many clones, man. I spam it a lot, but
Yeah.
there hasn't been a whole lot of times where I'm just like unmotivated because I want to stream it. Like whenever I'm on, I usually stream. Is the thing. And again, it's all about the community pushing each other forward. It means so much, and it's got to be a lot of positive reinforcement. Sometimes you can talk smack here and there in the chat to like help me get motivated because like I would deal with that a lot in baseball too. Um, going back to real life environments of like staying motivated and stuff. Um, Having people push you and really kick your ass, man, it helps. So please
Yeah.
push your friends constantly on whatever media you're on, offline and online. It's so important.
Yeah, for sure. I agree.
I mean, for me personally, like streaming has never like helped me to push myself. Like
Yeah.
when I stream, I usually just stream to like interact with people, and
Mm.
at the very beginning to kind of prove that I'm playing on keyboard because nobody believed it at the beginning. But yeah, I think streaming for me is just like interaction with people because I don't play well on stream. Like I play a lot better off stream, and
Yeah.
like if I want to just grind a track, it's a lot more relaxing for me to just play it like for myself while watching someone else. Like streaming for me is literally just like connecting with other people and like giving a platform for the Trials community to just hang out and like talk. Like, and I mean, I think like that's really cool about streams in general for Trials because no matter if like RJ is streaming, Doughnut streaming, Lorcan streaming, Scott is streaming, or like any other like person from the community, you always see the same
Yeah.
people just coming in the chat and like coming together and having conversation. And I think that's kind of unique in Trials as well, having the same people in every like stream because it's just like the same community.
Yeah.
There's a
I think
question.
like
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, talking to people goes a long way. When I play trials, talking to Blubbi or RJ or Scott or whoever it is, just being in that like environment definitely helps me to play. If I'm just sitting there by myself,
I don't
it's
get so
definitely a bit of
frustrated when I'm talking to
Yeah.
people, usually.
Yeah.
it's a bit of a Scott at
Yeah.
M if you're by yourself.
There's a question I think Cav has asked it like a million times over the course of the last couple of podcasts. Let's go over it really quick. Should Red Links remove the 30-minute timer?
No,
No.
no,
I don't think
The big
so.
definitely not.
I don't
No,
think they
even
should.
so how about in like a scenario where you're
Like I think what they can do or what they like should do technically is they should make it so you can keep playing a track after 30 minutes, but you can't get a score on the leaderboards.
That's an awesome idea. I have never even thought of before. That's a brilliant idea, Blub. I think it's an excellent way to just keep practicing and have an unlimited timer.
Yeah.
Having whatever that practice mode Vantier had going on as well. Like, yeah, no, I agree with that. Like,
But
The argument to that, though, is, well, as arbitrary as the 30-minute timer may seem, a point to it is the point of humanity. Like, at what point do you stop? There has to be
that
a point,
addiction,
and
it
I
just
think
brings you
30
back to it
minutes is
every
very
time.
reasonable. If you sit there and you time out 3 or 4 times on a track, that's like 2 hours, man. That's a long freaking time
Yeah.
just sitting there and trying hard.
Your actual
So
mental state and physical health is in danger.
Yeah, for mental health. I think for the sake of your sanity, I think 30 minutes is crucial.
Yeah.
Cav
I mean
doesn't care about
that as
his own
well.
safety.
I mean, just from a like really challenge of passing the track standpoint, I think it's very important having a like deadline. Doesn't necessarily matter if the deadline is 25 minutes, 30 minutes, 10 minutes, or 40 minutes, because the
Yeah.
tracks are going to be built accordingly to that deadline. It's just Redlings put 30 minutes as their arbitrary deadline. And
Yeah.
what that does is it requires you to be consistent on a track. Like a track like Wraith would have been passed within the first week if there wasn't a 30-minute time limit, because someone would have just sat on the track for 8 hours until he passed every checkpoint.
Yeah.
And
Just not switch
that's,
off your console, you know?
yeah, and
It's like
that's what makes
zombies.
the deadline really important.
I remember watching Syndicate like get the world records
Mhm.
for one of the like zombies maps in Call of Duty, and he just wouldn't switch off his Xbox. He'd go to sleep, wake up, still be on round 100 and whatever, and then progress. Like it's ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think
And I
another.
mean, like,
sorry,
just
go ahead.
one little thing that's like kind of important to me personally, because there's been like a lot of debate about it and discrediting, like when the like multiple kind of tracks came along, like, you know, double bounce got or whatever.
Yeah.
Because the only difference is not that
Oh,
the
go
track
ahead,
gets
sorry.
harder, but it gets harder to pass it in 30 minutes. If there wasn't a time limit, it would be unnecessary. But
Yeah.
it adds a challenge because you need to be more consistent, and that's ultimately what makes a track like harder to pass it in 30 minutes.
One of the
Totally.
things. Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, one
Um,
of them.
I think a good stopping point, you guys, for this podcast. I think we're coming to a close here.
Mm,
I don't want to keep Blub around for too long. It's already what, like 3 a.m. for you over there?
2 a.m.
yeah.
2 a.m. Okay.
Might as
I'm
well
kind of
be.
just like whatever
Wanna
at
I
this
want to
point.
conclude it with, so what do you think are like the worst and or best parts of Trials as a whole? Like throughout all of the series, um, like for example, I'm gonna start it off. I want to say that the worst part, um, Blood Dragon. I think that we can just say that first and foremost. I think that's something that it just felt like a joke to me, and I never ended up like, finishing. I think it was a joke, literally. That
I never
coming
even played it.
coming out with that, yeah.
Same.
So that was something that I just never could really get behind. But the best part being the community and the motivation and the push and like just how difficult this game is. Um, it is the hardest game out there, I think, in my opinion, in my, you know, in the course of my life, of all the games that I've played. Like I've pushed myself to new boundaries with this game, and that will, always trump the, Blood Dragon. So what do you guys think about that?
I mean, I would say the best thing about Trials, the community, and the worst thing about Trials, the community.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'd say worst part, like on a individual's level, is probably like not achieving your goal after and like grinding, and you just don't end up getting what you want, and it just breaks you. It can break you. I think that's definitely the worst part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my favorite
I
part
can break
is both the community and the achieving something, but that's not really specific to Trials. Although I do get a lot. One of the don't know how to say this, but like my biggest achievements in Trials, for example, when I passed Luscious, like my reaction and my feeling about that was better than anything like I've
Euphoria.
almost done in like my life. Like
It's
I've never got that feeling before. Like it was one of the biggest things.
actual euphoria. Like it's
Yeah, actual
Yeah.
euphoria. Like, I've spoken in front of crowds before and stuff like that, and none of that has like given me
satisfaction.
but then also one of my least favorite things of Trials is trying to keep up with my own or like people's perception of my skill, because especially when when you build yourself up to be a certain skill and then you don't keep up with that, then you start feeling crappy. And so like when I time out and things now, or doing these daily streams, if I don't feel like I'm performing, it just demotivates me so much because I'm just thinking, God, I'm so bad, but I'm so good. And it's just like, yeah, it's super, you kind of get in your own head because you think you're at a skill, but you're not performing at that skill you should be.
I
And it's
agree.
just,
That's why
I mean,
Yeah.
PC
like
sucks.
trial standards as well. It's like the standards you set for yourself and the standards that are kind of like set by the community. Like they changed so much in the just past 2 years.
yeah,
Like when Fusion came out, it was unheard of to like, come close to zeroing like a level 5. Like back then, passing level 5s was still crazy. And like
Yeah.
today, people rarely upload like level 5 runs anymore just because they're not like low fault, like anything below like 10 faults in a level 5 is kind of not considered like worthy to upload
Yeah.
anymore, even though it's still a crazy achievement.
Yeah.
And the standards you set for yourself as well like rise with the like community. Like I know what felt like a really good run for me like 3 years ago, I would think it's quite trash nowadays just because my
Yeah.
standards like rose as well, and I think you guys can totally relate to that.
Yeah, definitely.
Any concluding thoughts before even chat? If you guys have any more questions, please let us know as we wrap it up here. Any final questions or concerns from you guys?
Concerns.
Concerns of Rising, maybe just the hope that it does get hyped up and that it will succeed. Like
Bigger,
how it is.
bigger fan base, player base. That's my hope.
Yeah.
There was a thought that it might not be such a good thing though to have like a super giant player base. If it gets to like Fortnite caliber, never gonna happen, by the way. But still, if
I
it
wouldn't
does,
complain.
just
I'd
think
get
in
like
a world
200,000 views.
just so many, thousands of viewers, that it might muddle like what we have going on here and like
The
getting
core
these really close
community.
connections with the community. That is, I don't think it's gonna happen like that. But if it does, all the people that are in here right now, you're the number one priority on the list. Okay.
Yeah.
You need to know
Well,
that.
I will say if you look at Fortnite's community, all of the big streamers, big pro players, they're all, friends with each other. Like
Yeah.
like if this became a big community, we would all still be like really tight compared to everyone around us, like all the new
Yeah.
people. So
Yeah.
I don't think
Just be
that's something to worry about.
yeah, just be very accepting and opening and supportive, as we always try to emphasize in this,
Yeah.
at least in my community, and I think everybody else is the same way. But yeah, I think that is gonna be it for us. Was there any questions in the chat that we missed
I
that
don't
you
know.
guys want to see?
I want to say
No.
Plop did not make it, unfortunately. Hopefully he'll be here for the next one.
Yeah, I just saw him in the chat actually.
If you guys want to be a guest on the podcast, there will be a link to a Google form sign up in the YouTube video below.
Yeah.
I think we should try and make a time and actually stick to it if that's possible for future podcasts. We'll try and get that better.
Yeah.
I think also start the podcast like don't have a pre-podcast as much.
Yeah, we're gonna do it in the morning probably. My thought is to do it on Saturday mornings. I'm a lot more available, and I think all of Europe would probably be available too. That's probably one of the most important things for Lorcan. I want to make sure that he's in a good state of mind and not staying till God knows when, how late with Blub. So
Well, he's
really
2 hours
appreciate
ahead of me.
Yeah.
Yeah, really appreciate you all being here. Yeah, dude, I want to keep this going for as long as humanly possible, but we can't do it without you guys. And please add comments to the YouTube video that RJ uploads.
Topics first to discuss, anything like that.
Yeah, you guys helped out again so much. Blub, want to thank you for
thanks for having me
with us, man.
First
that was awesome
guest
to have you on
Pog
here.
champ.
Yeah, we made some progress right there. So
Yes, we
peace out,
did.
everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your day. I might be streaming later. I don't know, possibly.
I
But
will not be.
yeah, have a great one, everybody.
Yeah. See ya.
Good night.
Bye
Bye.
bye.
Love you guys.
Bye.